Okie dokie. Ouch. Crashed into the table. Okay, Sharon, won't you read scenario number 1?
You enter a house that has 2 children in residence. One of the children appears to be underfed and has bruises on its forehead and chin. Is this abuse or illness?
We're just going to discuss it. There's not a right or wrong answer.
Well, I would say first you would just, okay, I've seen it, and then I'm just going to sit and visit and find out whether these are 2 healthy children or if there's a reason that the child just fell or, had an accident or, and just like you had said, if there could be a reason that the child does things to themselves or something like that. Don't jump to conclusions and think, oh my God, they're abusing this kid. So,
Can you talk to the kid? How old is he?
Yeah,
Well,
well, that's another
possibility
thing.
won't
If
do
that
it.
child's old enough
Yeah.
and you can say, well, how'd you do that to your
Right.
head? They'll tell you.
But
That's absolutely
My butt will
right.
hit me with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And the baseball bat turns out to be that plastic thing that you hit the great big Nerf balls with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Charles, you want to do number 2?
You're in a home where the female care recipient is very nervous and flinches at loud noises and is constantly looking around her to see who is near. She appears to mutter under her breath. She shies away from touch. Is this abuse or illness? One or the other. That's a tough one as to what to do about it. She's still gonna just have to be quiet and analyze the situation and see what's going on. What else can you find out? Either from somebody there or by talking to them or something.
Well, you'll notice that most of these are not clear cut. There's, as a matter of fact, neither one of the ones that y'all have read have been clear cut. That's with a specific understanding that you can't judge until you get more information.
Gotta get to know them.
A snapshot of what you see when you go in the home is very seldom ever exactly what you think it is. Now, number 4 may be a little bit more clear, clear cut one way or the other. You enter a home where the caregiver and the care recipient are silent and strained. The caregiver has a stressed appearance and the care recipient is clearly agitated. Is this abuse or illness? If it is abuse, who's being abused?
Could be either one.
And it's still not clear cut because it could just be a momentarily flare angry at one another.
We looked at, a caregiver being verbally abusive and emotionally abusive. There are times when the person that's being cared for, they're the ones that do that. And it makes it very difficult.
Especially if the person that's doing the abuse, that happens to be the one that's being cared for, has an illness or a brain.
Yeah, it changes
Trauma.
their personalities.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you saying personality absolutely goes along with this. When my husband was injured in the oil field and came away with traumatic brain injury, when he was still in the seizure phase, before he would have a seizure, he had something that they called pre-seizure rages. He would just get fighting mad for that long before he would have a seizure. And you wanted to make sure you weren't standing near him when that happened. Because he would sling things, he would throw things, he would curse and carry on. And that man is not the man that I married. The man that I married was possibly one of the sweetest natured people I had ever met in my life. Never raised his voice. but you get traumatic brain injury on top of everything else. And the stuff that you see is just enough to, it'll shock the daylights out of you. Because you see someone, and sometimes the traumatic brain injury sends them the other direction. Maybe they were real cross and angry and hateful all the time, and they get a traumatic brain injury, and now they're teddy bears. You know, you can see a lot of crazy things that happen
You know,
from traumatic brain injury.
I'm learning a lot from being in the nursing home. I think God's put me there for an education, and we all know this happens, and I just, because I'm not in direct contact with the residents a lot, but I just hear things that going on and stuff like that, and you know, they talk about how someone has changed, and they used to be real sweet, and now they're agitated, or they used to be real agitated, now they're sweet, and stuff like that. And there was a physical therapist that said something to me this morning. He said, they told me she used to be really somebody to handle. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, she's pretty sweet now. I said, well, good for you. You know. And so, I mean, there's just different things like that. And I think of the people that have someone in their home, and they're trying to cope with taking care of them and what I see up there. And it's really an eye-opener.
And so the strain of that on a caregiver is tremendous.
Right, because they're up there, they have shifts. They get to leave.
Yeah.
You're here for a few hours.
You're only here for a few hours.
Somebody else gets to take care of you.
Yeah.
Um,
I will tell you that many, many times
a lot.
that caregivers, even when they know that they cannot handle it, they still will do their very level best to try to make sure that that loved one stays in the home, because they don't want the loved one to think that they don't love them. And so it's really, that's the only way that you can help in a situation like that, is just to make yourself as available as possible. Now, you're not going to be able to, I spoke with a caregiver today that, wow, bless her heart, that's all I got to say. She does not qualify for a lot of governmental respite care, and so we were working on trying to find her some respite care through other means. And we don't have any respite care groups there in Abilene yet. And so I was doing my best to try to find somebody that could help her. I said, do you belong to a church? And she fritzed on me. I mean, she was like, do you think that if I had a church family that I would be calling you?
Well, you don't know.
I said, well, I appreciate that you answered my question. Thank you so much. I understand that this is hard on you. Because I stopped for a second and I regrouped, because I thought, don't open your mouth. Because the first impulse when somebody blasts you is to open your mouth and go, well, you know what? If that's a problem for you, here, click. You know. And I may not have flesh and blood. My head went there for just about a split second. And right behind it was the Holy Spirit that went, don't open your mouth. And so I sat there for a second, and then I thanked her for sharing with me. I said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I said, I'm going to do my best to try and find someone that can help you. I'm going to call out to an agency that I know about and see if you fit the parameters for that, because she's right on the border. And the problem is that both she and her husband are ill, and they both need assistance. And she really probably needs to be in a nursing care facility. because she has so much physical problems. And she's having problems getting her meds regulated, and sometimes she can't afford her meds. And if she was, it's in situations like that that I'm okay with paying my taxes. Because I know my taxes are helping to pay for something like that. I'm not okay in other situations, but I am okay in this one, you know. And I wanted to say to her, have you considered? But first of all, I didn't have trust built with her. So the first thing I needed to do was find some way that I can help her so I can begin to establish some trust. And then the next thing that I need to do is I need to find someone that can help her in the home without charging her in some way to build a little bit more trust. And then I'm going to call her and I'm going to say, okay, now that we've gotten these things, tell me about what kind of needs you have inside your home. Do you have any medical equipment needs? Do you need a ramp? Do you need, and then get her hooked up that way if I can. We do have some medical equipment stuff. We have some things that have been donated to us, that we have walkers and we even have a stroke walker that's for one side of the body. We have paper products. That's what they're called, is paper products. That would be like the briefs and things like that. We have tons of those that we can share. When we first started, we needed tons of them and didn't have any. And now nobody needs them and we've got tons. And so we got to figure out what to do, what to do with them. But we'll find somebody who needs them because they're not perishable.
Absolutely.
So we'll be able to do that.
Somebody at the nursing home brought me some, they're like child size, which is interesting. They must have had somebody really tiny in there. And they said, you go to First Baptist, right? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, you want to take these down there for y'all's supply? And I said, well, sure. So,
Well, I was really impressed that you guys have an elevator, because a lot of churches don't. They're just inaccessible. And as we started up that first, I was like,
had it a long time, right?
Oh, yeah, we had that over a long time. But we had to redo it.
Yeah, we had to fix it.
Spent a bunch of money
But
on
it's
it.
been here a long time.
do you guys have handicapped people who come to church here?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do they enter through the back? Or how do they get in?
I mean, they come through the
To get
elevator.
into the sanctuary, they come into the elevator?
See, we came down, it goes up.
To the sanctuary.
Oh, so I see,
And see,
okay.
we're in the basement. We were on the first floor when we came in, then we go upstairs to the sanctuary.
Okay, so do they drop off right here at the edge of or at the corner of the building? Is that the way you?
Yeah, and now you
This
can
is
come up
handicap parking
you can
right
come
here.
up that ramp
And it's
right
handicap
there.
parking both
Yeah.
ways here.
Because we have
Okay.
people with walkers, canes. I mean, it would be so difficult. Or if they just had to go up, I mean, they may not have assistance that they're holding or something, but keeping them going, but if they had to go upstairs, they'd never be able to
When
come
our
down.
elevator was out, under repair, we had church.
We met
services over
in the Family Life
there.
Center,
So people
in the
could
big,
just go up.
the gym
Come
part,
on.
so
Wonderful.
they could get
We
in.
made the access parking for handicapped, the parking lot back in the back restricted for them,
Yeah,
where they could come through that
Yeah.
level floor, back door.
they were the only ones that are supposed to park back there.
Very good, very good. There is a program that's called Shine that you guys are probably the only church that I know of that's making such a concerted effort to make sure that handicapped people have the ability to get into their building. Now, I will tell you that
You mean it's like they already had one and then changing it? You're talking about like that, or they're building a building? Because if they built the building now, it'd have to be accessible.
Right.
right, but I'm talking about that have a building that has been here since before the ADA
Okay.
stuff. Now, Fountain Gate has really gone out of their way, but we have a long ways to go still. We have some things that are necessary, but lots of people can get in. It's just that, like, the accessibility to bathrooms and what have you, the stalls are big enough, but only for one person,
Mhm.
like if they're on a walker or something, not for if there's a wheelchair. Or if they need someone in there to assist them.
Yeah.
And if it's your spouse, how do you handle that? You know, are you gonna send a man into the women's bathroom to help his spouse in
Yeah, and
there?
you put somebody by the door and say, watch.
Well, that's what I'm saying is though,
Yeah.
that the government says that you have to make allowances for that. So you have to either have an usher or whatever. Well, that's what we have is ushers that take care of that. And so when we only have 2 people in particular that have to have assistance when they go in like that. And so they put an usher at the door and say, I'm sorry, it's gonna be a few minutes, could you use the one? We have 4 bathrooms,
Mhm.
2 men's and 2 women's.
Okay.
And we ask them to go to the other side
Mhm.
and use the restroom that's down the other hall.
Yeah.
We're handicapped on the men's bathrooms in this church. We have one. And then it has no handicap, so $50 down. It's in the basement, you can get to it through the elevator. But it does not have, it's just the old timey type of pots, you know. It's not as big as a closet, are they?
Yeah,
So we don't have any
we don't
functions
have,
for that.
like, I don't know of anybody that we have that wouldn't be able to.
In our church,
Yeah,
yeah, it would need assistance.
yeah,
Yeah, right over there.
At this point, that's
Yeah.
not,
I
okay.
don't think so.
Well, and,
We could probably make some kind
you
of,
know,
if we had somebody.
Well, we figure it
we'd
out.
make something.
If it's needed, we figure it out.
okay, let's go ahead and go on to dealing with difficult behaviors in care recipients. Individuals with cognitive impairment may exhibit a range of frustrating behavioral problems. These might include communication difficulties, becoming fixated on an idea or constantly repeating a question, aggressive or impulsive behaviors, paranoia, lack of motivation, memory problems, incontinence, poor judgment, and wandering. Common causes of cognitive impairments include Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, stroke, Parkinson's disease, brain injury, brain tumor, or HIV-associated dementias. And according to the Alzheimer's Association, the following are symptoms or behaviors that sufferers can exhibit. Now, once again, y'all are able to read these, and this is pretty drawn out. I'd like for you to take a look through these, and then before we start class next week, Sharon's going to be responsible for making sure, Charles, that you get back here with your notebook. You're going to get to take your notebook home, and
Oh, okay.
Sharon will call you to remind you to bring it back.
Okay.
One of the things that we did
Am I
kind
supposed
of,
to call her?
pardon me?
Am I supposed to call her?
You can if you
He's
want.
got
I mean, why am I the baby?
He's gotta remind me.
I'm just.
Good.
No,
I'm
it's
just-
so funny.
Why am I the
Good point,
baby?
Charles, good point.
Okay. Well, y'all
I've
call
been
each
taking care
other
of
then.
myself for a long time.
Okay. One of the
I'm one of
things that
those hard to deal with behaviors.
You're beginning to see the true Charles.
Uh-oh, here we go. Okay, are we done? Are we
Yes.
ready? So that I can. Okay, aggression and anger that can appear suddenly with little or no obvious causes. We talked a little bit about that earlier. But like I said earlier, if you see things like that that are just starting off right away, you may see something that maybe a caregiver won't catch because they're there all the time.
I was just gonna say, if that wasn't covered in the intake,
Mhm.
then the first thing I'd wanna do is ask the caregiver, has this been happening? Because, whoa, or something like that, you know?
Right. And you're gonna wanna always say something to the caregiver. Never let it slide.
Right, right.
Especially if the person socks you or bites you or,
Hello.
now, that's just, I'm just using that as a really out there.
Yeah.
But if they're like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," you know, at everything that you say, you might want to say to the caregiver, is this something new? Or does this person respond that way all the time? And if they go, what are you talking about? Then you're going to need to say to them, you know, you might want to get them to your family doctor because maybe they have a UTI.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a urinary tract infection. And if they do, it can cause some pretty bizarre looking behavior. You know, it can cause them to have memory loss. They can be confused about where they are. And so as far as causes for these things, there are some physiological, not physical, but physiological things that can cause them to behave abnormally at the drop of a hat. Because maybe they're people that are very elderly and they have a lot of getting up and getting down problems, they will wait and wait and wait to go to the bathroom. Because they just don't want to have to get up because it hurts so bad to get up and down. And that can cause a bladder infection, which in turn can cause a kidney infection. And when the kidney infection happens, then you've got the entire urinary tract that's involved, and you're going to see some confusion. You're going to see them acting a little bizarrely sometimes.
What if they just resent the fact that the caregivers would have to let you there to take care of them? They can get angry about that too, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
I mean, they may not have shown any of that, and then they just may not like you.
that's why you're going to want to go in a couple of times before you go to sit with them.
Okay.
Just to stop by, let them see you, because if they don't click with you, we're going to send another respite caregiver in. Or that's
Well,
what you're going to want to do.
They need to be comfortable with their person there, and you're all there before you're left by yourself.
Right, right. And that's part of the intake process.
Okay.
And you guys will discuss that more at length once you decide what you want your...
And something I was thinking about, when you're doing the intake,
Uh-huh.
are they gonna sit there and listen?
They actually may have something that they want to add,
Okay, okay.
but that will be dependent on the caregiver. You have to do what because you're there
Okay.
for the caregiver. If the caregiver wants to go in the other room to visit,
Okay,
then you go in the other room to visit with them.
okay, I just wanted to know.
Well, some things they might want to say about them that they don't want to say in front.
Well, and that's true, I understand that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be talking about them, you know.
Now, some caregivers, like I have some folks that I work with in Abilene, that they're like, you go in and they'll say, now this is what mom likes. And they'll go down the list of this is what mom likes. And then they'll say, and she does not like this. So make sure that you don't do that. And mom's going, yeah, go do your thing. I just need somebody here so if I have to get up and go to the bathroom. So I have somebody's hand to hang on to. So I don't fall out in the middle of the floor and lay there till you get back. You know. These are, the things that I'm giving you are scenarios that are out there so that when you don't experience those, you're going to feel like, yeah, we made it through the day and we didn't get anything really horrific, you know.
Okay.
But not everything is going to be really, really bad. Sometimes they're just going to need somebody that can come and hang out. Watch TV, whatever. We just want you to be aware that when, like if you go in for late stage sufferers, sometimes they're already bedbound and they can't communicate with you. And they're unable to remember, like they're not gonna know you because they didn't know their family. You know. And so asking them things like, do you remember me from the other day? Just reintroduce yourself. Don't make them uncomfortable by saying, do you remember? Because they don't. Just assume that they don't, unless they say, I remember you from the other day. But in stage, they're probably not going to remember you. And if they don't remember their family that they see every day, they're probably not going to remember you. So just reintroduce yourself. They're going to forget words. They're going to become lost to the conversation due to the lack of comprehension Their brain doesn't comprehend the words that are being said to them. Sometimes it's better just to stop talking and just love on them. You know,
And sometimes
hand
they try to
pats.
talk, and what they want to say is not what's coming out.
Yeah, and you'll see that in situations like with stroke or Parkinson's or like brain injury. Brain injury is notorious for this, as well as stroke, because a stroke is a form of a brain injury. It's a bleed, but a brain injury can be caused by a lot of things. It's usually from an outside force. A stroke is from the inside. Sometimes they can forget how to do daily activities of daily living, or ADLs. So you can ask them, would you like me to brush your hair? You know, you want to get dressed so we can go sit out on the front porch? Sometimes you asking them something that is exactly the same thing as what their loved one just asked them, they'll respond to you where they didn't respond to them. And it's not because they don't love their loved one anymore. It's just it took them that long for it to process what it was that was said. Because once you get into brain traumas and strokes and Alzheimer's and not so much Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's is degenerative, but like with a stroke and they're recovering from a stroke, you have to give them plenty of time. Don't speak really quickly unless you can see that they're comprehending what you say. Don't like if you ask them a question, would you like something to drink? Give them time to process what you said, decide on an answer, and then get the words out. And it's the same way with a brain trauma. You're gonna you'll having been in their home one or two times before, like Sharon will probably go and do the basic intake unless they ask for a man to come to do the intake. If it's a man who is caring for his wife, you might send Charles to let him do the basic intake, because the guy might talk to him where he wouldn't talk to you. And he could,
I talked to her before he would talk to me too.
that's possible. Anything's possible. But if he specifically asked for a man, then you can send Charles out. Or send Don. Well, Don works a lot, but send Charles out, if that's the case.
That's nearly a caregiver situation right there with them itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just gotta
It looks like they need to be in the program instead of
go by each
part of the
individual.
program.
Sometimes. And sometimes you may go out to a house where both are in pretty bad shape, and you're not really sure what's gonna happen. And so, like if you go in and you see something that you feel like, and you offer them respite care and they say, yeah, call Sharon. And then Sharon will call me and I'll come out if it looks like it's a situation that you're not really sure about. But more than likely, as much as Sharon has been through with the nursing home and with me, with all the years that we've been doing this stuff together, she's probably gonna know. So, and you're probably gonna know.
I don't know.
So, I bet you'll be surprised at how much you already.
How many years did you do the hospice?
I didn't do hospice.
Oh, that was just Diane.
Diane done it.
Okay, all right.
I've listened to a lot she said.
Well, sure.
But I've never done it.
Okay. My
But
bad.
hospice, she did kind of what we're doing here. She went by and sat with the patient.
Mhm.
She usually would go by and take them cookies and
Right.
stuff like that. But it was a terminal situation.
Yes. Yeah.
I saw a lady in, just kind of away from the subject, but she was probably in her 30s, had this young child, he was probably 13, 14, that was in a stroller type pushing thing. She had to pick him up, put him in the car, her motion was with him. And we talked with her, and she was under strain, taking care of that boy by herself.
It's hard.
And
that
one of the
was- you
things,
don't know what to do about that.
yeah,
Mhm.
That was an ambulance, so I mean,
Yeah.
we have a lot of that in Abilene. Because there are a lot of doctors in Abilene, and
Yeah,
people
so I
will
say a
move
lot of them are
from,
there because they're close to their doctor.
yeah, they've moved from the rural areas, moved to Abilene, so it's easier to take care of the situation. Sometimes, if you're like in the situation where we were at, they told us not to be any further than 5 minutes from the hospital because of the situation with my mom. And so it was a touch and go. You move to wherever you have to. You do what you have to do to make sure that your loved one is taken care of. And I wanted to say about this, dependent on what the person's diagnosis is, if you see delusions or hallucinations, it's going to be dependent on what their diagnosis is. Now I'm going to tell you a story about my mother, because I have experience with my mother. My mother was in intensive care, and she had had a massive pressure stroke in her brain in the what they call the occipital lobe, which is where what she views is processed into the brain. Now eventually it did get better. But when we first realized that what she was seeing was not what she was seeing, there had been some damage, and the room was like 12 degrees because with everything that had gone on in there, in her brain, her thermostat, her personal thermostat was all messed up, and she was running a really high temperature. They had her on a mattress that had fluid in it that, you remember the
Wow.
mattress
Yeah.
that had the cold in it trying to bring her temperature down?
Mm.
The window was open and the air conditioner was going, and it was February. And all of us are wearing coats and sweaters and scarves and all this sort of stuff, and my hair was down about this long at that time. And I had this big old long brown sweater, big old fuzzy brown sweater, went down below my knees. And I went in and I was standing at the foot of the bed and her eyes were open, and so I was really excited. I thought she's going to be able to see me. And so I said to her, "Hi Mom, how are you feeling?" And my little sister was standing on the right-hand side of her bed, and I was standing at the foot of the bed, like this. And she looks at my sister, and all of this side was paralyzed, because she was paralyzed on her left side because of the stroke area. And she says to my sister, "Psst," out one side of her mouth. And Brenda looked at her, and she got Brenda to come down there. And Brenda got down real close to her, and in a voice that would have wakened the dead, thinking she was whispering because she couldn't tell, she said, "That is the biggest squirrel I have ever seen in my